Welcome once again to the Sunday Sketch. I can't think of something that rhymes with sketch right now because it feels like that intro um, would would lead into some kind of rhyme, but it doesn't. So anyway, that's not important. What is today, by request, I am going to be building an original character from scratch for you right now. So let's jump into it. So building an OC, as they're called, right? Um, it's maybe not the easiest thing in the world, but I'm gonna talk you through a few steps that I take, and a couple things that I like to do when developing characters, and hopefully that'll help you guys develop your own characters. And yeah, let's just jump into it. Hello, welcome to the stream. So the first thing I want to do when creating a new character is I kind of gotta decide whether or not my cat is going to knock over everything on my desk. One moment. Okay. So whether so it's what the first thing you got to decide is what the character is for, right? Um, cat. I know. So where does this character live? What do they do? That sort of thing, right? And you can I'm just sort of sketching some basic poses and things. So, anyways, so for this character, what I thought would be neat, because you always have to have a concept, right? Whether it's a character for a role-playing game, that you're getting ready to do Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, you create your character concept. And so, what do you want the character to do, right? So in this case, I thought it'd be neat to just create just an original character, blank slate kind of thing. And I want to make a wizard, but I want to make it like a modern wizard, right? So what would a wizard look like nowadays? So that's my concept, my sort of grand overarching concept. It's also what the character does, who they are, that kind of thing. So I'm going to create sort of an outfit for the wizard that I feel would be modern, but also iconic. When you're creating a new character, one of the biggest things is that you want them to be recognizable. Now, that's not always the case, but if you're creating it for visual media, right? Then you want them to be instantly recognizable. That's why all your protagonists from anime or whatever, they have very distinctive looks. Like Shaggy, for instance, from Scooby Doo. He's always got the thing, the scruff, right? And he's always got the green shirt, almost always got the green shirt and brown pants combo, and walks with a particular posture so that you can tell from a distance, from just a silhouette, you can tell, oh, that's Shaggy, right? So we're going to try and create an iconic sort of look for this character as well. So I'm going to start with a skeleton, and this is really just a roughed-in skeleton. And then swap over to this color. And I like to do my lines in color. I've been enjoying that, so I'm gonna continue doing that. So I'm gonna draw on top of my skeleton kind of an outfit that I think a modern wizard might wear. So we're gonna give him a big old hood, right, like a hoodie, right? Because he is sort of emulating that classic wizard robe look. So we're gonna give him a hood, and we're gonna give him these long sleeves. But I kind of like those sleeves with the thumb cutouts. I think they're kind of cute. So we're gonna give him that. And this hood, let's say it's on a shorter jacket, because I think a modern wizard would definitely use. They'd either go one of two ways, I think. which is they'd be super lazy and get magic to do everything for them, or they'd use their magic to just become the coolest superhero ever. That's what I would do. If I had magic, I would totally become a superhero. So he's going to have a shorter jacket so that it doesn't get in the way of his mobility, right? Because jackets can sometimes, get in the way of mobility and stuff. So that's what we're going to do for that. I'm going to give him a short jacket, and then we're just going to give him, I think, regular pants. And shoes. Obviously, need shoes. Okay, so that's really all there is to it as far as designing an outfit. You got to pick, something that you think it looks cool. Sometimes you have to come up with a good reason for them to be wearing it, right? Like if your character is, say, if they just wear all of these furs, you got to think, okay, well, where are they that they would live that they can do that? And absolutely, you can tell me a secret, but the internet sees all of this, so I don't know. Anyway, you got to think of where they live and why they would wear the things they wear. So modern days, I don't think you'd see someone covered in furs. Because you have, people like PETA and stuff like that. So, fake furs maybe, but also probably not like Conan the Barbarian style, right? So, anyway, the next thing you gotta do, like, okay. Where am I? Right, so we picked out clothes for our character. The next thing that we got to do is pick out what the character looks like face-wise, because they got to have a face. Or maybe they don't have a face. Maybe they've used magic to take their face off so that, or shroud their face so that no one can see it. So maybe it is a faceless wizard, and they use their magic to shroud their face or do something so that when they're out using their magic to be a superhero, no one knows who they are. That is not a bad way to do it. I've often, in fact, I put up a new piece on my Patreon and on my art gallery site that you can take a look at, where I made a bug that is also like cat-shaped. And that was really just from putting, doing random searches, and I found a really cool insect, and I decided to cross it with a cat. Art prompts are a great way to come up with new designs and new characters. But in this case, we are creating a superhero wizard, so. And I think because he's a little bit, I think he's going to be a little bit impulsive, because again, why are you using the magic to become a superhero? You could use it for a lot more pragmatic things. You could make the world a better place. But so he's going to have a very young outlook on things. So we're going to give him a narrower face, because that generally signals youth, right? Being younger and maybe a little bit more naive. And then he's not going to have any facial features. He's just going to have a narrow face, right? So there's a technique to structuring a face where you divide it up into planes. So like, that's where the eyes are, and that's where your hairline is, and so basically you're, dividing it up into planes, and they, fit together like that. So that's one way to structure a face. It's not something that I do all the time, especially if I'm doing like a non-human thing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So he's not going to have a face. He's just going to be basically like that, I think. Maybe we give him little shadows where his eyes would be. You can just put shadows because it's a little off-putting to literally not have a face. I think that would be just kind of upsetting. So we're gonna not take his entire face away, but we're gonna be able to tell where his eyes are. And so his eyes are about here and about here. And that way he's still capable of doing things like emoting. You can still tell when he's angry. That's another thing, is if you're displaying your character and you do want to have them capable of displaying a certain range of emotions. And then I think we're gonna give him some hair, because I think all cool characters have to have cool character hair. So again, our hairline was like here, and we're gonna just sort of draw in the hairline, and because he's a wizard, he can have crazy gravity-defying hair, right? So we're gonna give him the most magical-looking hair ever, which is clearly, some kind of Super Saiyan hair. And we'll give him a fade on the sides, so it doesn't look like super, just straight up Super Saiyan. So something like that. So he's got crazy, crazy hair, right? So that's basically what our character is going to look like. So we're going to go ahead and put his head on this little mannequin that I put out here. Right? Build him a nice little head. And then his hair is going to do, from the side, it's going to look like this, I think. We're just going to do this where it like sweeps up in the back. So not quite Super Saiyan. More like a backwards mohawk. Because I think that's kind of neat. Looks like a cockatoo now. Okay. So, we've got our weird faceless cockatoo guy. But let's make him a little bit more magical. And this is going to be dark, right? Because you got to build that contrast into the character. And let's make him a little bit more magical looking. I'm gonna add some belts here, or you know what? He'll have this scroll kind of wrapped around his arm, right? So it'll be, we'll give him kind of this number where he's got some sort of crazy scroll wrapped around his arm, and it's got all these like rune things on it or whatever. and then of course his his hand. So that'll be he can just like read some spells off of his magic scroll arm thing. So that could be cool. And the next thing is you want to come up with some sort of action pose. Again, we've already a lot of the time things will just start fitting into place, right? Like I didn't go into huge depth into his personality and everything. It just made sense to me that the character would be this way, right? So he's going to be a superhero. He's going to use magic to hide his face. He's going to be a little bit impulsive, so he's going to have like a younger looking face, or not a younger looking head. And then he's going to have his magical scroll like attached to his arm. So these are things that just sort of fit into place as I was drawing, and I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense for this character, right? So now we draw our action pose. Now that we've developed a little bit, we draw our action pose. And so that'll be him, wanting to show off, right? So we're going to have him doing something that looks cool, because, you got to look cool for the people watching you do superhero things, because of course he's going to want people watching him do superhero things. You ask these questions, you're like, well, why does he do what he does? Because he wants people to like him, and he thinks it's cool. And he, it's like, and it's maybe not the best way to use magic, but it's easily the coolest way to use magic, is to become a superhero. So let's do something. I'm gonna just sketch a sort of pose here where he's gonna have his one hand outstretched. And it's always important to, when you're changing the angle of your hips, you also want to change the angle of your shoulders in the opposite direction, because that's just how the body kind of naturally balances. So that's why I'm doing that. Another thing you can do, but is not always necessary, is if you have one arm, pulled in, you have that same leg extended. It, again, has to do with balance and stuff, but for some poses, it's not always necessary. And especially since this is an action pose, I don't think it's strictly necessary, because a lot of the time they just have these poses where they just float in space, kind of. And so we're going to give him a sort of generic floating in space pose, which is not necessary, and I wouldn't say it's encouraged or anything, but it works in some cases. To, just have the character floating around there. I don't know why I gave him a reverse mohawk. I don't even really like mohawks necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying I don't dislike people who have mohawks or anything. I just, like, it's just never been a style that I'm like, yeah, I gotta have a mohawk, right? I'm not, like, anti-mohawk. I'm just not pro-mohawk. And then he's going to have his short hoodie jacket. And his magic scroll is going to be wrapped around this arm. His sort of that's his left. So his spell casting hand is going to be right-handed because the majority of people are right-handed. I could make him left-handed, and that would be a decision that I would have to make. But in this case, he's just going to be right-handed because it's just easier for me to because I'm right-handed, so I relate to him. Now I could make the active decision to make him left-handed, and that'd be fine. It would be another character thing, like Link, for instance, is left-handed specifically, and every version of Link has been left-handed, which is kind of cool. It's a cool little thing, Then his knee is going to be about there. Because it's a distinctive thing about the character, right? Link being specifically left-handed. That's a very specific thing about the character that little details like that. They bring the character to life. They make the character feel a little bit more real. And it can be something memorable, So then I'm going to do this foreshortened hand, and drawing hands kind of sucks. Ooh. You know what, let's just have him fold that pinky. Oh yeah, I guess he was kind of right-handed, but like everything in that game was mirrored over. So, but I think canon he's left-handed. But I didn't think about that because I had the I think I played the GameCube version of Twilight Princess, which is better. But yeah, one version did have everything reversed, which was a little weird. So there's our faceless street magician. And then we can, touch up the image. We can do more detail in places. Maybe he likes to bling himself out a little bit. So we draw, we give him a little, we give him a little gold chain, right? And maybe a ring. Oh, not that finger. That's a wedding ring or whatever. Give him a ring here, and maybe it's a magic ring. Stuff like that, and you can keep building, right? And of course, you can always do neat lighting effects too. So we'll make his magic. We'll make it this color, little cyan color. So when he's casting spells, his scroll thingy lights up, right? And maybe his hands start glowing. That's a terrible hand pose. I mean, it's not the worst I've ever done, but it's just not amazing. You know, something like that, right? And you can start coloring in, you know, like his skin color and stuff like that. I can start building up the layers. Let's make his jacket like a whitish blue color, or like a blue gray. And then his pants will be, you know, kind of just regular jeans. So he'll be a mostly like blue colored wizard, right? And there you go. Yeah. Honestly, little things like that, little details like that are what make Nintendo games really memorable and really great. Is because you're like, oh, Link is left-handed. Oh, that's weird. Or Samus is a woman. That was a thing that took video game community by storm when it was first discovered. They're like, oh my gosh, Samus is a woman. I totally thought he was a dude this whole time, or she was a dude this whole time, because, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of detail in Samus's armor at that point in time, and it was totally believable for there to be this, you know, action hero dude. So Samus was a big deal too. Little details like the all the all the little things that Luigi does, really, that make him like one of the best characters ever. That's actually only happened within, you know, last few years. There was Nintendo did this like Year of Luigi thing, and he just came alive. There have been other times, you know, like in Paper Mario or whatever, where he's actually been characterized, right? And those have all been great. And it's all these little details. So, anyways, that is a character created from scratch. And you know what? Let's create a. Let's do. What other kind of character do we want to make? I'll take a suggestion. Give me one like where does this what does this character do? What's our next character gonna do? Because we created a street wizard, so we're just gonna bank him for now, and let's create a new character, and I will be taking feedback. So let's create. I'm gonna build a pose. Well, it's dangerous building poses first, actually, because if you don't have a character that fits the pose, fits the attitude of the pose, the sort of characterization that comes with the pose, then the pose is junk. You know, it's like that that big sort of kerfuffle that happened with Tracer and her pose in the game that they ended up replacing. They're like, well, Tracer wouldn't show that much booty because that's just not her personality, and I totally agree. So you got to be careful with poses. You don't want to draw a pose for a character that they wouldn't otherwise take, right? So anyway, I'm gonna do. I mean, you can do a bunch of different poses. There's a nice thinker pose. rib cage sort of there, and then build in your muscle groups. Butt kind of squishes down because he's sitting. That's just kind of how that pose works. And we're going to have this arm kind of come back here. And that's his arm on the other side of him, really. There's a nice thinker pose. Anyway. Blind Ranger. Okay. I like it. Okay, so our character is blind. He's also a ranger, so let's see. There are some iconic ranger things that we're gonna do. Why is it dumb? Like, what do rangers do, right? First, we think about what does a ranger do? It in an RPG fantasy setting, rangers they track things. They're very knowledgeable in the forest, right? And in D&D, sometimes rangers have like an animal companion, right? So we could totally have a blind ranger that's just a dude with a seeing eye dog who lives out in the woods somewhere, right? I think the trouble comes in, okay, if he's a ranger, he's going to be good in combat, and fighting blind is a little tricky. So, I mean, we can go with that idea, or we can scrap it if you want. But a blind ranger would definitely be like... Yeah, that forest dweller hunter kind of thing, yeah. So, a hunter out in the woods that is blind. Now, that would be difficult, but not impossible, especially if we're talking about a fantasy setting. It could be maybe a blind... He used to be some kind of martial arts fighter, and so... He's now this sort of blind monk character who lives out in the woods, and he, you know, made some animal friends that help him out. Something like that. So, I mean, we can do it. If you come up with any other ideas, you know, shout them out, but I'll just start sketching it. Because to me, that character has a very straight, sort of somber appearance, right? And he carries, of course, he carries a big stick with him. And he has his hooded cloak. And he's got a little blindfold action going on there, because he doesn't want to freak people out with his eyes, his blind eyes, because that does generally, you know, freak people out, especially in olden times. You know, that these fantasy settings might happen in, or are themed around. If you were struck blind, that was because it was from God, right? Like God punished you for something. So we're going to give him a long cloak, but not so long that he's going to trip over it, because he is blind. But, you know, enough to keep him warm. bring his feet out to there because I think I undershot his height. Put his hips about here, legs there-ish. And that would put his feet squarely in the right about there category. And he's got his walking stick, because he's got to use it to help him see, get around, that kind of thing. And then, of course, you know, he's going to have his good boy. Because he's got to have his seeing eye dog at this point, right? Or maybe it's maybe because he's a ranger, maybe it's like a wolf, and he's got himself a little like leash for him because the wolf is his buddy, and so has agreed to help him out. And you know, maybe he's got a bird friend too. So we'll give him a little bird friend. And maybe, let's see, what kind of bird friend do we want? We should probably make it a hawk, because he's gonna have trouble. He is gonna have trouble hunting for himself, but he's got he's been living in the forest and he's made these animal friends, and so his animal friends are gonna help him do his hunting and rangering and stuff. So he's got his bird friend and his good boy, and they're gonna help him, you know, find food and stuff. Now, as far as doing a character build, I feel like it could be done if you wanted to play this character in D&D, but it would be real difficult. Could be fun though. Quest for Camelot. Yes, I have heard of it. Yeah. There was the love interest guy. Yeah, and he did carry that stick around and use it to, you know, tell where he was going and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, so there's your blind ranger. Now, we can go into detail on him, right? Because he's let's do our close up. Because he's blind, he's probably a little, you know, he's blind and out in the woods, so he's probably a little scruffy. I'm gonna give him a big nose just because I think I like the idea of him having a big nose. Ooh, that's a little much of a chin. A little bit too much chin. And he got them cheekbones for days because, I don't know, for some reason. I think I like the cheekbones. And he's got to have the eyebrows, but he's gonna be a little bit wild, a little bit bushy, right? And he's gonna have this blindfold action going on. So that people don't freak out about him. But then he's going to be a little bit scruffy. So we're gonna give him the little bit scruffy beard. And let's make his hair a little bit, because he's he's not gonna be able to shave that effectively. And let's give him some like longer hair, right? And he's blind, so he doesn't care if it covers his face a little bit. Let's make it a little wavier, though. I do like straight hair, but I think he'd have it a little wavy, because he's gonna be bathing in streams and stuff, so. He ain't got that shampoo or conditioner, right? So there's our close-up on our blind ranger friend. And then let's do some of his line work in green here. Because, rangers. In the forest. Gotta have his blindfold come up a little bit around the nose. That was one thing that I wasn't really paying attention to. And probably up a little bit again near the ear. And I don't often take, like, ethnicity into account, but he does have some beautiful lips, so I feel like he's got to be, like, probably, probably, like, Mediterranean. With that nose, I would guess either Mediterranean or African, but the chin isn't quite right, so I'm going to go with probably Mediterranean. I would say the chin's probably not right for African. And that is something that you don't have to take into consideration necessarily when designing a character. Like, I didn't really think about his ethnicity before I started drawing him. I just like drawing full lips. So, but it is a question that you can ask yourself is, what's the ethnicity of this character? And if you're playing a story, or, you're playing a role-playing game or whatever, how does that affect the world he's in, or even if you're writing a story for him, how does what part does his ethnicity play in the story? That could be a story hook for you. It's not something that you have to use, but it's definitely there because everybody's from somewhere, right? Yes, yes, everyone's from somewhere. And there you go. Blind Ranger. Got a nice close-up there. It is important to do a close-up, at least, you know, once. Because from far away, you're not going to be able to get all that detail, right? But, so you definitely want to have a close-up of the character so that you can add that detail to as much as you can to your character. But I find that it helps to do one of him, like, further away from you, right? So you can kind of get a feel for, you know, how tall he is and stuff like that without having to draw all the details all the time, because details will change. Okay, and he's got kind of a ratty cloak because he's blind and he's walking through the forest and everything, so he's not going to be paying attention to stuff like that. So we're going to give him kind of a little bit of a torn up cloak, because that just sort of makes sense for a ranger character, right? And his tunic will be a little ratty too. And his pants will be tucked into these amazing boots. Because boots are great. I love boots. I mean, I don't like love boots, but boots are like one of my favorite forms of footwear, so. Because there's so much variety in boots, or you can have so much variety in boots anyway. And his walking stick should probably be straight, but you know, it's made from like a tree branch thing, so he's gonna have a little bit of character to his walking stick. Because it's all mangled and rooted and stuff like he is. Because he blind. And then let's see what else. Oh yeah, he's got to have his good boy. Obviously. And his good boy has a rope that he helps lead the ranger around with. Of course, it doesn't have to be a wolf. It could be like a fox or any kind of canine. Kind of fits that that seeing eye dog idea quite nicely. But there we go. Oh, and the bird. Forgot the bird. Don't forget the bird. Gonna change his position a little bit because of the staff. There we go. Boop. There's your blind ranger with his seeing eye dog and his hunting bird, and they help him out travel through the forest. And he's got his walking stick, which he uses to, you know, get around, help keep him safe from obstacles and stuff, and also to, you know, hit people with. He's not going to be one of those bow-wielding rangers, you know, with the animal companion and everything. He's at more of a disability. It might actually be a really fun character to try and play in a D&D campaign. I might give it a try at some point. Could be fun. But you know, just in general, you got a pretty solid Blind Ranger character, I think. You can make just about anything work if you come up with a reason for it to work, right? So, for instance, Ino suggested Blind Ranger, and there you go. Let's see. Do I usually make character designs or backstory first? Sometimes I just do character designs first. Like, for instance, my cat bug, which, let's see, where is that? Let me find my cat bug, because I don't actually have the file with me. I was working at school on this in Photoshop. But my cat bug, for instance, was just the design, right? And then snipping. It was literally just I came up with a design that I wanted to try, and that's it. It was really easy. Boop, there you go. So anyway, this design was it just came from a design perspective, right? I could come up with a backstory for this character. Yeah, basically. You can totally do a Dark Souls idea. You know, like sometimes, like I did come up with a character design that I'm just like, I just want to do a Minotaur, right? I just want to draw this X or Y thing. I want to make a dragon, right? And then I'll try to make things make sense around it. Or like the insect character that I'm trying to work out, and this is actually where the cat bug came from. I just wanted a character to look like an alien, that, you know, wasn't humanoid, didn't have just the Star Trek thing going on their faces, but I still wanted them to look fairly friendly. What I came up with so far is for the character to have a lot of rounded features. So he's got like this beetle shell and a round head. And I think I gave him kind of a hornet looking head, just because I think it looks the most like a face. So he's got this bug face, but I still wanted him to look friendly. So a lot of the things that I gave him were you know, very round, because round is sort of a friendly shape. Rounder things are, you know, like just think of Baymax in Big Hero 6. You know, the non-threatening look. But then, even then, it's still, you know, I gave him little insect legs and stuff, and that still looked a little bit scary. So I'm like, okay, let's give him this little tail and make it this cute little round tail instead of like a scorpion tail. I'll give him like a cute little round tail. And give him these like wavy like lizard things, you know, goes all the way up here. And that's kind of what I came up with for the character. And it's still, I think, doesn't hit all the design aspects that I want, because it still looks a little bit intimidating. But I'm like, okay, how can I make it look like an alien that looks really alien and doesn't look scary? And so there are lots of ways to come up with character designs. Sometimes it comes with just challenging yourself with a concept, but I always come up with the concept first. So to actually answer the question, I always come up with the concept first. And then if the concept needs more backstory. It'll usually develop as I try and draw the character. In this case, with this particular alien, I have no backstory for it at all. I will come up with a backstory once I get a design that I'm satisfied with, a sort of friendly alien design that has fine motor abilities. So it has little hands or can do fine motor things, and isn't too intimidating, right? And then I'll come up with how everything works. Like, okay, well, now that I've got a design that I like, what kinds of things does it eat? That kind of stuff. And I try to make it make sense in the world after that. But a lot of the time, I will come up with backstory as I'm drawing the character. So I'll for instance, you know, I drew the character with the round shell and everything, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm not really satisfied with this. And then I get to a point where I'm like, okay, this character doesn't look terribly friendly, but it's an alien, and it has these tiny little insect hands that it can manipulate things with. Maybe he's some kind of a doctor. That would be an interesting character, I think. To have this little like cat-sized bug thing be a doctor, I think that'd be kind of interesting. I could just, you know, give him human eyes. I'm not really satisfied with that personally. Making him look more human, I think, makes it easier to make him look friendlier. But again, I wanted him to look as alien as possible without being too terribly intimidating. So, I don't know. I've been thinking about maybe making his eyes larger and going, you know, with something like this. But that makes me think of flies, and I don't like flies. But that could be the way to go, because again, if you give them big round eyes, they're round, and round is a very friendly shape. So that could definitely be the way I go with it. This character is still in progress, right? Maybe I give him cute little scuttle feet instead of long claws. Maybe he's got cute little scuttle feet, and he scuttles around like a cute little crab thing with a little tail. And, okay, what would he use the tail for instance? Okay, maybe he uses the tail, okay, I drew it kind of like an anglerfish, you know, lure. Maybe he uses it to, lure in certain kinds of prey, whatever he eats, right? Maybe he eats small insects, because he's like cat-sized, so maybe he eats smaller insects. Things like, I don't know, dragonflies or something, right? Well, okay, how's he gonna catch them, right? Okay, so maybe he maybe he gives off some sort of pheromones, something like that. So all of these questions, they tend to just sort of come up while I'm developing a character. How does this work? How does that work? But I always start with the concept, even if I don't have a specific idea in mind. Always start with a concept. For instance, I want to draw a ranger character, or I want to draw the character to fit a specific niche. You know, maybe I want to draw, maybe I'm drawing a concept for a comic, which I've been working on for what feels like forever. This is actually a character for my comic, if I can get him figured out. And so maybe you need a certain amount of diversity. You want to have it helps when you're building an ensemble cast to have a lot of variety in your character shapes, to have them look fairly distinctive. And so you come up with different things. Isopods? To the Googles. Isopod. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like silverfish or wood lice. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with that round shape, for sure. Um, the round shape is really what helps them look friendly, I think. Anyway, we are at an hour. I've had a lot of fun coming up with a couple character designs here. So anyways, if you want to take a screenshot or whatever, you can just go back in the thing. But that is going to be my time for today. Thanks for being in the stream, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to, present me with a challenge as far as what kind of character, you want me to do character designs again, feel free to leave comments in the, when this video gets archived. Just go ahead and leave comments on it, or any of my videos, really. I am always up for a challenge. Whew. And a little bit out of breath. Anyway, I gotta go get some food. It is about lunchtime here. And I will be back next week for some video games and more art stuff. Until then, goodbye, friends.